New York City, famously dubbed the City of Dreams, is a center of innovation and hope. Many circumstances contribute to how New York City would become dominant in the world's playing field. New York City is famously known for its beautiful lights. Times Square encapsulates the city in its true nature, but the city known for its illustrious lights was illuminated for the first time on September 4th, 1882 at 3 p.m. Now always illuminated, the influential efforts of inventor Thomas Edison would make this possible. Opening January 1st, 1892, Ellis Island served as the center of immigration. 12 million immigrants were processed here until 1924. During this time, each immigrant had a different story, their own claim to America. Many hoped America would allow them to a new life, with less of the restrictions they faced in their home countries. Resulting from this mass migration was overpopulation and accompanying slums. Journalist and muckraker Jacob Riis began to highlight this issue in 1890s, How the Other Half Lives. After this, reforms were joined in the effort to ease crowding, promote sanitation, knock down walls and allow light and windows into buildings for ventilation, create playgrounds for children, and improve the conditions by increasing fire safety. Fire safety lacked priority at the time of March 25, 1911, when the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire led to the deaths of 141, at least 125 were women. A sweatshop of young immigrant women, the poorly updated conditions, an outdated fire hose, and difficult-to-access exits resulted in these deaths. Reformer politicians and labor organizers joined to prevent another incident similar to it, which prevented this level of negligence to an employee. Reform politics were connected to New York's Democratic Party, Tammany Hall. Tammany was a political machine, and bosses would divisively use healthcare, employment, citizenship for immigrants, landlord negotiations, or they would even pay to obtain votes. These politicians used the office to steal money from city projects. They would reign from 1789 to 1970. MTA, the New York Transit, is one of the busiest transport systems in the world. It connects the 5 boroughs of the city, and the first subway opened in 1904. It would expand from the Bronx to Brooklyn. Due to the transportation, Coney Island and Brooklyn would develop as a destination. It allowed people to contrast from the hustle of the city. In Harlem during the 1920s and 1930s, African Americans would grow an associated culture with the advancement of their society, particularly drawn to the arts. New York City remained in the same sort of mystique until during the 70s. A fiscal crisis hit the city and stagnation came to the tax revenues due to suburban moves. Welfare and benefits such as free university drained from their system. The legacy of public housing continued, which originated in the 1930s to provide housing to the lower-income residents of the city as a result of the Great Depression. They were in good quality and they were massive projects spanning much of the city. It was selective originally, but by this era, it would loosen at the suggestion of social justice. Crime rates escalated and about 1 million would leave. As many buildings became uninhabited by the dislocation, they were abandoned and subject to squatters, and with the high unemployment rate, crime subjected the area into an area of atrocity. In the Bronx, as landlords saved more money by accepting insurance than renting out, they would intentionally set buildings to be set on fire. So the Bronx was a center for miscellaneous fires, and they were a frequent occurrence. The crack and HIV epidemics began to attack the city.
On our streets and highways, missing signs, and what City Controller Harrison Golden is calling poor maintenance of traffic signals and signs. It's costing the city a bundle. And as Milton Lewis found in his own one-man survey today, the system could use some
How
help.
long have those lights been inoperative?
Over 3 months.
They've not been working.
Right.
These non-functioning lights at Jackson Street and FDR Drive are typical of faulty traffic signals, according to Controller Harrison Golden. He reports that such defects, including faulty and missing signs, are causing problems. In Greenwich Village, there are homemade cardboard street signs at the intersection.
After this, the future of the city was uncertain, but as the mayor, Rudy Giuliani's decisions were able to change the trajectory. Now ridiculed for hostility, racial bias, police brutality, and a near-authoritarian rule, he was once deemed America's mayor from 1994 to 2001. He would engage in stop and frisk policies, allowing police to pat down anybody that they suspected. This is criticized for targeting men of color, but they were effective in slowing the crack epidemic and returning crime rates to a timely low. He held low-level crimes to a high standard. This decline in crime, combined with Giuliani's return of interest in tourism, as in Times Square development, allowed New York City to return to former interest.
You okay?
Yeah. Please. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Watch out, watch out. I got it.
Building completely down.
September 11th, 2001, the tragedy of the Twin Towers would affect the city. The city was in destruction, jobs were lost, thousands died, and many were left traumatized. In resulting dust clouds, carcinogens would carry and would remain in lower Manhattan and Brooklyn for time after. Exposure to any of it is proven to have modern-day consequences. Later, as they would join, New Yorkers were able to rebuild their community, one that they felt extremely close with, and they were able to preserve the culture and the city they were before destruction. New York City is now a city of advancement and immense beauty, and it has remained strong after many tribulations.